The Grammy announced some changes in their rules and they also introduced some new categories. It's creating a stir. A lot of people are debating over it. So this video has two major sections. The second section is just my opinion, my take on the matter. If you want to jump to that, check the description box for the timestamp. But this first section, I'm just going to go through the changes, some of it at least, the ones that are relevant. I know much of the discussion is about the category for Asian performance, but there are actually a lot of other rule changes that are relevant. So the first section is more information than anything else. Okay, let's get to it. So the new category is called the Best Asian Pop Music Performance. It recognizes excellence in recorded Asian pop performance across various genres, K-pop, J-pop, and C-pop, and other Asian genres. Now, I know that there is a confusion between performance and the song. So you can say that the song actually has two major components. One is the composition itself, that is the melody, the lyrics, and the songwriting. So that can exist even before anyone actually records it. So if RM or Suga or J-Hope or anybody from BTS writes a song in 10 and 10 different artists perform them, then the underlying composition is the same. So that's usually recognized in Song of the Year, Composition of the Year, Songwriter of the Year. Now, the other component is the performance or the recording itself. And that includes the vocal performance, the rap delivery, the instrumental execution, the arrangement, emotional interpretation. This is what usually we hear or listen to in Apple Music, Spotify, and other streaming platforms. They say that if there are two different songs, Song A and Song B, and let's assume that Song A has complex lyrics, beautiful poetry, incredible lyricism, but the vocal performance is average, and then you have song B, which has simple lyrics, simple songwriting, but then the vocal performance is outstanding, extraordinary. Then song B is most likely going to win the performance category, and song A, the one with complex lyrics and beautiful poetry, that's going to win in the songwriting category. I hope that's clear. Now, Harvey Mason, the head of Grammy, actually stated that they felt that this is the right time to actually get this category in place because of the dominance of Asian music in the West. And they said that there is a possibility that they're going to expand the recognition with other awards in the future. But for now, this is where they are starting with. Okay, other details. There has to have meaningful use of one or more Asian language. All English song is not eligible. So Swim is not eligible, but there are other songs in Arirang that's actually eligible. Okay. And then in terms of musical style, that's really the what they're looking for in who they're going to be nominating, not necessarily the ethnicity or nationality of the performer. So other popular music forms from Asia or the diaspora. So for example, you have an all English Asian song, meaning the melody and the instruments that were used were all from Asia, but it is in English. You can still feel that in other categories, major ones, Record of the Year and other things. Okay, now there is a caveat. In practice, Grammy voters actually rarely separate the song and the production, the composition and the production. So, sure, they do receive guidance on how to vote for which category, but usually a beloved song can still help its performance chances. So, the song, while the category is technically about just the performance, voters inevitably still consider or react to the song itself, the cultural impact, the popularity, artistry, and the overall package. Okay, so other categories that they've put in place: best Latin songs, best R&B collaboration or duo group performance, and best traditional pop vocal performance. Now, the pop vocal performance is actually pretty interesting, at least for me. I was thinking like, what's traditional pop? Shouldn't it just be classical or something. Well, we're talking like jazz, traditional pop, contemporary instrumental and musical theater field. So for example, um you're looking into, when it comes to this award, you're looking at the vocal technique, you're looking at live performance instrumentation, you're looking at rich orchestral or big band structures. You're looking at jazz influence standards and show times. So you can probably think of artists like Michael Bublé or Lady Gaga or even V when he released Layover. Okay. So instead of looking at synths and EDM drops or trap beats or streaming area production, for traditional pop music, you're looking at big bands, string orchestra, piano led arrangements, jazz chords, Broadway style vocals. Those kinds of performances are the ones that are considered for traditional pop performance award. Okay, now let's look at the new rules. So previously, 75% of the album needs to be new. 75% of the songs, they need to be new for them to be considered um the for album categories or for recording awards. But now they've lowered it. So only 66% of the album needs to be new. So two-thirds of the album. So for example, and they're doing this because they recognize that artists are increasingly releasing music in stages. So it used to be like, okay, this is my album, buy it, and then we'll move on. Now it could be by March, they release an album and then several singles become a hit. So by June, there is a deluxe version, but there are also additional songs. And then a month after, there is an expanded edition released. So not all the songs may necessarily be new, but since there is enough songs that are new, they would consider it because they know that people or artists are now releasing songs in stages. So in 15 songs, if 10 songs are new and 5 are old songs, then they would meet the threshold of 66.7%. They now qualify for the album category. Okay, so this will benefit artists who are releasing deluxe versions, repackaged albums, expanded editions, or those that are doing multiple releases. Okay, another new rule, songwriters will now be recognized. So there are certain awards where songwriters and composers actually don't qualify to get the statue, the actual physical award. Okay, now they are going to recognize them. So there used to be an imbalance in recognition. There was a situation where some people who actually wrote the music didn't get the same level of recognition as the people who recorded or produced it. These are specifically the ones that are getting record related awards. Okay. Now, um, for example, for best pop vocal album, the ones that will receive the physical trophy are the artists, producers, engineers, mixers, and mastering engineers, depending on the category. So that was the old rule. In the new Grammy rule, songwriters will and composers will also get the statue. Um, and also the achievement certificate. Okay. So now let's move on to digital only releases. Best album notes and best historical album categories, even if they are just purely released on digital, will now be considered. And I thought this is interesting, specifically for best album notes. So it used to be that if you release an album, for example, there is a physical album, and then you include historical essays, research notes, track by track explanations, recording history, session details, photos and documentations, and scholarly commentary. Then that will be considered for album notes award, best album notes. However, now if BTS, for example, for the 10th anniversary of Wayang Yonhwa, they release a new set of songs, or maybe songs that they didn't release, that they recorded during that era or wrote during that era, or they re-release or remaster the old one, and then there is a 100-page booklet explanation explaining the story. There is a track by track explanation, session details, photos and documentations, and scholarly commentary, even if they only release it on digital form and not in physical form. Then the writers and contributors to those, to all of that, will now have a chance to win a Grammy. Okay, for Best Historical Album, previously unreleased recording, restored recordings, career spanning box sets, and historical collections, even if they are just digital with no vinyl, no CD, they will be eligible to win a Grammy. And those Grammy awards will now go to producers, restoration engineers, archivists, and researchers. Interesting, right? Not necessarily the okay. So the problem is that it used to have a physical form, a physical release. So you need to have all of that: the booklet, the CDs, the vinyl, the CD. That those have to be physical. But in recognition of the new trend, they are realizing that some people would actually just prefer to consume that digitally. So even if you just release it digitally, you can win best album notes and best historical album. Okay, so physical format is no longer required. Now, new voting rule. Okay, they loosened up on the 10-3 rule. Okay, so in the old times and still being used, there are two steps. You need to vote in the six major categories. You vote in the album of the year, record of the year, song of the year, best new artist, songwriter of the year, non classical, and producer of the year, non classical. And then after that, you get to vote on 10 other categories in no more than three fields. They say that that is because they want the voters to be able to vote only on categories that they have mastery over, that they have experienced on. But now they've expanded that. People can now vote to 15 different categories. So what is going to happen is that first, step one, they vote in the six general categories: record of the year, album of the year, song of the year, best new artist, songwriter of the year, non-classical, producer of the year, non-classical, and then they can vote up to 15 categories. However, there are certain conditions. So there are still some things they need to meet, some requirements that they still need to meet for them to be able to vote on that five extra categories. They are doing this because they are recognizing that there are more and more music creators that are increasingly work across genres and disciplines. So they said that voting members who want to vote five extra categories, they need to submit credits by a specified deadline, and then they call this the ballot plus, and then they are subject for verification, so they need to submit their application. They will be reviewed, and then once they are approved, they are going to get notified that they can vote five more extra categories. Okay, they said that they are just adapting all of these changes they are doing because they are adapting to global music growth, evolving release strategies, and broader creator recognition. Now, the question: is this meant to isolate Asians? Let's get on to the next section of this video. So the Academy announced some changes in their rules and also announced some new categories. And it's generating a lot of debate. That is to be expected. But I'm assuming that you're here for a more balanced take, a more level headed take on the matter. So here is mine. Critics are arguing that creating ethnicity or region specific categories risks isolating Asian Latin artists rather than actually integrating them into the major fields. And I think that's an understandable concern. These categories could create new opportunities for recognition, but they could also give voters like an easy way to acknowledge these artists without seriously considering them for the major awards like Record of the Year. But I think the challenge is that the impact of any rule is often different from its intended intention. Because on paper, I think lowering barriers and expanding representation sounds positive. In practice, it could become a form of segregation rather than inclusion. But then, there's another way of looking at it. The Grammys are, first and foremost, an American institution. Let's not forget that. They were created by the American music industry for the American music industry. And as the US became the center of the global music business, of course, artists from around the world naturally would come here, become successful, and I think it's natural for them to be recognized. It is reasonable to expect that the Academy is going to evolve as international artists become increasingly popular among American audiences. What is often overlooked is that disagreements over Grammy winners or their rules, they're not unique to international artists. Even among American and I guess Western acts by extension, there is a long history of controversy over who wins and who loses. Fans and critics and industry professionals, they clash, they disagree over the results. So the concerns about fairness and quality and popularity and artistic merit, they're not exclusive to K-pop or Latin music or Afro beats. There is another point worth considering. And I think much of the discussion around this new category has been just about the outcomes, who wins and who loses, on whether or not the Asian artists will be discriminated upon when it comes to major categories. And those are very important questions. But throughout Grammy history, the creation of new categories has actually benefited some of the genres. So, for example, best rap album, best Latin album, best Música Urbana album did not simply recognize music that already existed. These categories actually help legitimize the genre within the Western music industry. I think having a category in the Grammys sort of sends a signal to labels, to maybe even media organizations, artists, audiences. It tells the industry that this body of work is actually worth paying attention to. So even if Best Asian Pop Music Performance never produces a single Record of the Year award winner, I think the category could still lead to greater investment or maybe more media coverage or I don't know, like increased participation or better artist development across the Asian music ecosystem. So in that sense, the significance of the category may extend far beyond who actually takes home the trophy. Another reality is that the Grammy winners are determined through voting. And like any voting system, of course, it is influenced by relationships and campaigns and industry networks, personal preference, of course. So labels advocate for their artists, and industry professionals would, of course, vote for people they know and respect. Artists backed by powerful organizations have a huge advantage over independent acts. Whether people disagree with that system or not, I guess that's a different question altogether. That has always been a part of the Grammys. But that is also why it is very difficult to determine the true impact of these new categories. There is, of course, two possibilities. The optimistic interpretation is that it serves as a gateway. If the artist wins Best Asian Pop Music Performance, then maybe they can gain visibility within the Western music industry and then they become more competitive in the future. Harvey Mason Jr. himself, the head of the Grammy, said that they're not opposed to expanding recognition for Asian music. But of course, there is the more skeptical take. And this is the one that's sort of dominating many of social media nowadays. Voters can feel that since they've already recognized that Asian in that Asian category, then they don't need to be recognized in the major fields. That is, of course, a tragic one. The truth is that we don't know which outcome will prevail. These categories are new and their long term impact will become clearer in the next 5, 10, maybe even 20 years. What we do know is that these changes do not prevent artists from competing in the major categories. So they can still submit for Record of the Year, Song of the Year, Album of the Year. There may also be another practical problem that the Academy is trying to solve. Most Grammy voters are not experts in K-pop or J-pop or Mando pop or T-pop or any other Asian genre. So when an Asian recording or Asian artist for that matter competes directly against major American releases or major American artists, some voters may lack the context necessary to evaluate it. And I know that the solution is for this artist or this voters to actually educate themselves and get more exposed. But we do know human behavior. This is going to take years, if not decades. So, this new category may actually be an attempt to ensure that the recordings are evaluated by voters who are more familiar with the artistic tradition of Asian music. Now, it does not automatically make the solution correct, but it does suggest that there may be valid motivations beyond just simply creating a separate lane for Asian artists. For me, though, the larger issue has never been the existence of the category. The larger issue is whether the Grammy voting body is capable of recognizing excellence consistently across genre, cultures, geographical boundaries, commercial boundaries. And that question has always existed. It has existed before the announcement and it will continue to exist for years to come. So I think the real test is what happens next. If Asian artists continue to get recognized in the major categories or in general fields, then this category will likely be viewed as additive. But if Asian artists begin disappearing from the major categories and voters start treating this best Asian pop music performance as the ultimate destination for all Asian artists, then critics will have been right. The category itself, I guess, is my point. The category itself is not the evidence. The voting behavior that follows will be the evidence. If the Academy truly intends this category to expand opportunities rather than limited, the next decade of nominations will reveal whether that promise was fulfilled or if they failed. I also think that there is another question worth asking and worth answering. Many of us are approaching this conversation from the perspective of artists who have already been competing at the highest level. BTS, for example, has been considered for the general categories, and there are reasons to believe that they will be recognized or considered for the major fields like Record of the Year or Song of the Year or Album of the Year. But what about the artists who never had a realistic pathway into the Grammy conversation in the first place? What about the Japanese artists, Thai, Filipino, Indonesian, Taiwanese artists who had previously very little visibility within the academy? This category may actually represent an opportunity that did not exist before. That category may ultimately benefit the broader Asian music ecosystem more than it benefits globally established acts like BTS. Whether that is enough to justify its creation is a separate question altogether, but it is a perspective worth considering. Regardless of how the question is ultimately answered, I think there is a larger lesson here. The Recording Academy is also facing a bigger challenge, remaining relevant in a rapidly changing musical landscape. The gap between commercial success and cultural impact and award recognition has become increasingly visible. Artists who are dominating charts, artists who are influencing culture and shaping an entire generation without necessarily receiving industry's highest honors, they're becoming more prominent. And I think in many ways, BTS actually helped expose that disconnect. Ultimately, I think no institution has the final word on music. Awards matter, don't get me wrong. An artist can win 10 Grammy Awards, however, and leave no lasting impact. Another artist can be overlooked and still change lives, inspire future generations, and build a legacy that endures long after the trophies are forgotten. That's why I have become less interested in treating the Grammy as the ultimate measure of artistic value. The more I learn about how the music industry works, the more I see the Grammys as one voice among many rather than the final authority. As fans and as music lovers, our influence lies elsewhere. We choose which artists to support. We choose the message to amplify. We determine what music becomes part of our lives and our culture. I think BTS and ARMY have already demonstrated that collective support can influence institutions, challenge assumptions, and force the industry to pay attention. So, while it remains to be seen whether these new categories ultimately promote inclusion or create new barriers, I think the most productive approach is to continue championing quality. Commercial success is important, and we will continue to vie for that for our favorite artists, but artistic quality, meaningful message, and cultural impact are what ultimately endure. The Grammys will continue what the Grammys do. The rest of us should continue to do what music lovers do: support great music, celebrate artists who matter, and trust that in the long run, history tends to be a far more reliable judge than any award show. Okay. Thank you for staying with me. Thank you for listening. If you have anything to add, if you want to give your point of view, please do so. Just leave them in the comment section below. As always, you can say whatever it is that you want to say. Just please do so respectfully. But this issue has highlighted even more my desire to continue and finish the book about BTS. As you know, I have a project. I'm trying to document their impact, their success, the changes that they have affected in the global music industry. The one disadvantage that they have is that because they aren't native English speakers, it's so easy for others to overlook the kind of impact that they have, tangible changes that they have made, how they really have changed pop music industry globally. And I want to document that. And this is not, I really want it like fully documented, supported with interviews and all of those stuff. So if you want to help in that project, it's going to be a book, but in the long run I will also be producing a documentary. So if you want to help in that project, the GoFundMe link is in the description box. But if you want, please visit our online magazine as well, Asian Entertainment and Culture dot com. We're trying to hype it up so that we can help more artists and Asian art to have more exposure in the West. I also produce more news type of content on TikTok, IG, X, Facebook, and YouTube Shorts. Also shorter forms, so that may be good for you. So please support me there as well, or be a member of my community Patreon or YouTube membership. I do a live stream once a week for members only, and I also provide exclusive content. That is it, I think. Thank you so much for being with me. Please like the video, subscribe, and hit that notification button. But the most important thing is for you to share the video. That's really going to help the channel. Send the link to your social media friends, to your family members. Put a link on your social media accounts, on your messaging app, on your email, everywhere. That's going to help the algorithm to push us more to more people. Thank you. Till next time.